Good evening, everyone, and welcome to AP Physics, the Physics of the Torah. Today we're going to do David and Goliat, the story of David and Goliath, where Rashi in the late 1000 CE proves that even then, at the end of the medieval period, he's still a better physicist than I am. I couldn't believe that Rashi caught this, and I missed this. We're looking at Shmuel Aleph, Perek Yud Zayin, 1 Samuel chapter 17. Let's take a look at the contest between these two mighty heroes of legend and see what's going on here that we may have missed. The commentary that I'm bringing here comes from Yofiyut Malchut V'Zemirot from the incredible Rabbi Yehoshua Bachrach, who passed away in 2002, who was a prolific teacher and writer in Yerushalayim and Bnei Brak, and he writes this commentary on Shmuel Aleph as the life of David HaMelech cross-reference with all of his poetry in Tehillim. He uses the Psalms that David wrote to say, what was he thinking when he wrote this? What was his emotional state? What's going on with his life that the kingly scribe of Shmuel Aleph is not writing down? And in this book, Rabbi Bachrach points out that we have been reading David and Goliat wrong, not only for centuries, but possibly for millennia. And the only possible correct interpretation, derech pshat, plain meaning of the text, is one that agrees with the laws of physics. It's an incredible way to fuse two of the things that I love most in this world, the rules of the universe as described in physics, and the rules of the universe as described in Torah. So let's take a look. So here are the Philistine. They're making trouble again. The Philistine were a tribe of Phoenician raiders that came from across the sea, got off the beach in Gaza and said, looks good, we'll take it. Dug in, and it'll take us most of the First Temple period to come to terms with the fact that they ain't going nowhere. Yes, we know they came from Phoenicia, we came from Ur-Kasdim, and nowadays there are all sorts of interesting and wonderful people who live in the land, including many wonderful Filipinos. Let's stop worrying about where we came from and get on with the plot. Doesn't matter who was here first, we're all there now. In any case, they're doing their usual sacking towns, burning down farms, rustling livestock, ravishing women, turning anyone they find into shish kebab, and Shaul, the first king of Israel, is there to stop them. So they've got the geography right in the cartoon. The Hebrew army and the army of Peleshet are encamped in between these two ravines. One army has the high ground on this side, one army has the high ground on that side. And let's keep the geography in mind because it's going to be important. Neither army can really see what's going on when David meets Goliath. Sooner or later, the Philistine are going to have to raise and grow what they steal. They're farmers, same as us. It's just that they raid more and farm less. They are trying to conquer as much as they can without undue loss of life, which is why single combat is their idea. They have this Bronze Age giant champion of champions, Goliath Migat, who is 6 amot v'zeret tall, and amma is from here to here, and you know that a Latin foot goes from here to here. Your forearm is directly proportional to the size of your foot. It's generally 1-to-1. So this, from here to here, Goliath is considerably more than 6 feet tall, even before you get to the half. And he's clearly been training in the military all his life because he can wear 5,000 shekel armor and still be able to stand up in it. And here he goes every morning, banging on his spear and yelling, "Muahahahaha! Come challenge me! Single combat! I spit at your God! I fart in your general direction!" and generally heaping scorn on Bnei Israel, their silly king, and whatever God that supports them. And what does Shaul HaMelech do? He does absolutely nothing. Nobody really appreciates the genius of Shaul HaMelech in this moment, who stands there and says, you know what this guy's doing? He's shouting a lot. You know what he's not doing? He's not burning fields, sacking farms, and carrying off slaves. Shaul HaMelech knows that that he's not going to be able to take a giant. And Hashem picked him because he stood head and shoulders above every other fighter in Israel. He had a loud, shouty voice, a charismatic face, and a nasty temper, and he was the man whose job it was to unify 12 squabbling and often homicidal tribes into one Jewish people. The man was a farmer. He lived in a house in Givat Shaul with his one wife and 5 children. He was not a man of war raised from his youth, even though his father Kish, Ish Gibor Chayil, had himself served in the army. Shaul was a farmer. His strength was in leadership and not necessarily in feats of single combat. Who should have taken up the challenge? Yonatan, the crown prince, Shaul's eldest son, master of the sneak attack. Look at the previous engagement with the Philistine, and you'll notice that Yonatan and his armor-bearer, like Frodo and Sam, pretty much single-handedly rout an entire brigade of Philistine by attacking them in an echo canyon at night, so that the bad guys can't actually tell how many people they're fighting and mostly end up fighting each other. Yonatan is a brilliant tactician, and he's pretty good with a spear. He specializes in keeping the enemy at least 5 feet away from him at all times. He's not a swordsman. Single combat is his worst subject, and Shaul knows it. So Shaul says, "You know what, Goliath? You spit, I sit. We're going to see where we land." He doesn't do anything. He figures he can wait this out as long as it takes, and a stalemate is still a win for the Jewish people. In comes David ben Yishai of Bethlehem. David is the youngest of the 8th brothers, and according to Rabbenu Bachrach, it's because he's the son of a younger woman. After his first wife died, Yishai took a beautiful young second wife whom he loved very dearly and who died in childbirth, giving birth to a beautiful little baby. The older 7 brothers were jealous of David. They saw the Yosef story being played out in front of them, where the beautiful son of a much-loved, much more beautiful, younger wife quickly becomes the father's favorite, inherits everything, and gets told while everybody is still in the fields harvesting grain and minding the sheep that he's going to be king one day, or at least his descendants are. So the 7 elder sons of Yishai quickly poison their father's mind against the little boy and keep reminding him, "That little boy is the reason that you don't have your beautiful wife anymore." All right, never mind the fact that we hated her guts and were rude to her every time your back was turned because she wasn't our mother. But no. Let's let bygones be bygones. If it weren't for him, you'd still be married. Which is why David is raised as this little runt of no account. Before he's old enough to fend for himself, he's sent with the sheep out into the wilderness to make sure that the flock thrives, but not off of other people's crops in Bethlehem, if you please. It's called Bethlehem for a reason. And the kid basically has to raise himself and fend for himself. Rabbenu Bachrach gets a lot of this through Tehillim and the language that David uses to talk about God, indicating that God is really the only mother he ever knew. Ashira Ladonai ki gamal alai. The lashon, the language, is the same as the lashon for weaning a baby. David feels he was weaned from the wet nurse who was paid to make sure he didn't die straight into God's arms, because those are pretty much the only arms that have ever taken care of him and kept him safe. This background is going to be important when he says he can fight a giant and win. So there is David. He's sent to bring snacks to the elder brothers, care packages for them, and an extra nice care package to the Sar Elef, to their captain, so that next time the captain has to decide whose turn it is to scrape out the latrines and who gets a free weekend in Yafo or Haifa, he remembers the care package fondly and thinks well on David's brothers. And when David gets to the front and he hears Goliath cursing God, whom he loves like a mother, he says, who is this uncircumcised Plishti that he dares to curse the armies of the living God? Here we go, older brother, younger brother. Eliav is worried that David actually might amount to something, and David's like, Masiti, what'd I do? I was just asking. But he asks, and this asking brings him to the attention of Shaul. Shaul says, "Kid, no way." And David says, "Look, I have been my own first line of defense since I was way too young to be anybody's first line of defense. And I have lived my life out in the wilderness, and I have kept not only myself but my sheep away from mountain lions and bears by making it my business to stay out of the way of large, hairy things with large, sharp things here and here. David says, I know I don't look like a soldier, but trust me, Your Majesty, I have a lot of experience. And Rabbenu Bachrach, of course, says that the fault here is not David's for being a notorious braggart, as he says the fault is Shaul's for accepting what this kid says. Hayatzu tzarich lig'or bo keYaakov Avinu al chalomotav v'al dvarav. He says a good king would have treated him like Yaakov treated Yosef, and scolded him for having an overactive imagination. Yeah, all right. So one goat ran off, got carried off by a bear, and you, as Rabbenu Bachrach points out, one of his students said, you left the other 99 sheep behind to be lunch for any wild animal that came along while you went chasing bears up into their dens or chasing mountain lions up a mountain to get that one sheep back. And David said, I know, it doesn't make any sense, but trust me, it's worked before. It's me, Your Majesty. I get out of things that there's no possible way I should be able to get out of. Your Majesty, I have 7 older brothers. I'm always getting into scrapes, and Hashem is always getting me out of them, and I don't know why, or at least I didn't know why until today. Maybe it's because I have a purpose. Maybe because God is giving me this kind of experience to know how to stay away from big, hairy, sharp, dangerous creatures who mean me no good, and maybe Adonai asher hitzilani miyad ha'ari miyad hadov hu yatzilenu miyad ha'plishti hazeh. Maybe I can return the favor. Maybe I can give glory to God if God saves me from these plishti using the same experience I got on the lion and the bear. And Shaul tells him, Lech v'Adonai yeh imach. We know how the rest of the story goes. Shaul gives him his very own armor, which is a kingly gift in a land where the Plishtim hold a monopoly on smithing. Remember, only Shaul and Yonatan were the only ones with metal weapons. Everybody else has bows and slings in the light infantry here. And of course, that lasts for all of 6 seconds when they cover David in this ridiculously heavy metal. And what happens? Yeah, pretty much that. The kid falls over. He can't stand in them. Of course he can't stand in them. And it's completely antithetical to his purpose. David's advantage has always been to be smaller, lighter, and more maneuverable than his enemies. To put a point on it, he has less inertia. Here with an eyewitness report coming to you from Esfes Damim, Ben Soko, and Ben Azekah, it's Kobe.
How does a sheep herder, 4th born, son of Jesse, tribe of Judah, take on the Plishtim champion? There he is, David, in the middle of the valley. But the earth is quaking. Who could that be at this hour? It's the Isha B'Naim for the Plishtim. It's Goliath, bedecked all in bronze armor. He generates more gigawatts of fear than Sully from Monsters, Inc., and he's coming to destroy. And David knows it. Oh, everyone jeers, but behold, as Goliath is aghast that David would dare challenge him with literal and not proverbial sticks and stones. Just watch how angry his eyebrows are. Oh, but David responds. He retorts that he does not uphold the theology of Deus Absconditus, that God is hidden. No, God would clearly help guide the stone. Now for the physics. Keep your eye on the stone. Watch. Whippo wappo blammo. Goliath is hit right in the forehead. And he falls down. Another one bites the dust, or at least in this case, bites it and then kind of spits it everywhere.
Look at that. Conservation of momentum like nothing you have ever seen, and the Jewish people are so impressed. Let's get them, guys. Go on. Wait, let's try that again. What does it say actually happened in the Mikra, Yonit?
וישלח דוד את ידו על כלי, ויקח משם אבן, ויקלה ויך את הפלישתי, על מצחו, ותטבע האבן במצחו, ויפול על פניו ארצה.
That's right. Look at that slow-mo replay. He falls on his face. What's the issue here? So here's the problem. Here's David, here's Goliath, and they're running toward each other this way. And David puts a stone into a leather sling. Not a slingshot, not elastic potential energy. We're talking rotational kinetic energy, Bronze Age infantry going straight that way. And he hits Goliath. Again, Goliath's going this way and the stone's going that way. On your review sheets, draw a quick set of stick figures and notice what it says in the pasuk. Vayachat ha-plishti, and he hit the plishti, el mitzvah, in his metzach, vatitba ha'evan b'mitzvah, literally the stone drowned in his metzach, that is, it sank all the way in, vayipol al panav artza. Draw the stick figures and explain, ladies and gentlemen, what's bothering Rashi and just about anybody else who knows anything about physics as they look at this pasuk. Press pause on a new video, fill in your stick figures and your vectors, and press play when you're ready to check the answer. Even the medievalists get this one, basic conservation of momentum. If Goliath is hit coming from this way, he should fall on his back, not his face. Oh, sure, we got one little lousy rock coming in on this side, and a big enormous giant coming in on this side. So sure, theoretically it is possible that the net momentum of the system could still be in the negative direction. Go on. Use conservation of momentum in an inelastic collision. Remember, the rock supposedly sticks there. And find out what kind of velocity the stone could have had in order for Goliath to be still moving forward. I mean, theoretically, it's possible. Let's give the Mikra some credit here. Again, show your work and press play to check your answer. Basic inelastic collisions here. The two of them are going to be staggering around with a final velocity that looks like this. And if you want the negative term to be bigger, then Goliath's momentum has to completely dwarf the stone's momentum, which means the stone needs to be moving with a velocity that's significantly less than this. Now I ask you, if the basic physics for this problem to work involves the stone moving very slowly, how likely is that to crack anybody's METZACH? What does the Radak say, Yonit? How could the stone pass the helmet, the shield that he would have had on his forehead, and hit his forehead? Way to go, David. Aim straight for the guy's helmet. You got one shot. How hard can it be? Hashaliat Hakadosh Baruch et Harach Bekasha. Yeah, I would say that is a miracle. Efshar Shahaya Makom Maot Nigeula Bemimkomo Ube Oto Hamakom Ha'eben Niz Damna Ertzon Ha'el. Now, setting aside the point of the Radak, who says that if you are translating METZACH as forehead, hello, the guy was very clearly wearing a helmet, and a helmet may look really awesome, like a big bronze bull or a set of ram's horns or something, but if it leaves a giant hole right in between your eyes, then it's almost as much use as a chocolate helmet and should be ditched instantly for something considerably less useless that doesn't fall off in the middle of the battle. The Radak doesn't even notice the physics problem. He's too busy noticing the miracle 3 doors down from the splitting of the sea that Goliath's helmet fell off right in the crucial part of the battle. Oh, ifshar shehaya makom mo'et megolam bimkomo. Or maybe this is like, the Hobbit versus the dragon here, where there's this one teeny tiny weak spot, and you just have to be the hero, and in order to aim like right there and get the black arrow under the dragon's right foreleg. Nisdem up your son L. God's will, okay? In 2011, Jeff Budwig and Jonah Frankel did their presentation on the physics of the Torah, and they found that there are quite a lot of very well-educated nerds who know their Bible and know their Old Testament, and out at European universities have actually built these things and tested them in the field and labeled lovely data tables for us to see the approximate range of a late Bronze Age Mediterranean leather sling of the kind David would have been carrying. Now, contrary to what the TED Talk says, David was not an experienced infantryman. He was not, check the pshat, he was not allowed to go out to the army with his elder brothers, who explicitly say, "What are you doing here, kid?" This is the weapon of a shepherd for keeping away from large animals and flinging stones at them while he is running very fast the other way. Well, Jeff and Jonah were able, with a steel ball bearing, to make a very small dent in a very large watermelon that, I'll pee the Radak in the miracle, was not wearing its helmet at a time. Pause and calculate the kind of impact time that you would get if, in fact, through conservation of momentum, Goliath fell on its face. Press play to check your work. Yowza! If you're looking at the upper limit, we said the stone's velocity has to be less than, well, it has to be less than 3,900 meters per second, which is past Mach 10, given the size of that giant. So I don't think we're going to have any problem with Goliath plowing into the stone like this. The issue is the range of the sling. And if the range of the sling takes she-chalak V'Zemirot, which if you translate it into English and simply put it into Google unit conversion, says it's 2.905 meters. Oh, apparently I'm not the person to be doing this physics analysis here, and do basic projectile motion, you'll see that the sling, it probably has an initial velocity of something like 175 meters per second, rotational kinetic energy converted to linear kinetic energy to let fly. And 175 meters per second would be just enough to slow Goliath down by about 0.1 meters per second once it's smacked into him in the perfectly inelastic collision as above. So we've got an upper bound and we've got a lower bound. We've got a pressure in newtons per meter squared, that's the compressive strength of bone. We've got the area of the rock. So we're looking at about 4,300 newtons of stopping force. Stopping means negative, means pushing back against the direction you're coming in, and that's going to have an impact time of between 2 milliseconds on the low end, which we saw in first year honors physics without the calculus, is definitely enough to crack an egg. That sounds very much like the lab groups of the part 1 in the classroom, 2.1 meters off the lab bench, and an upper bound of 88 milliseconds, which most definitely will not crack an egg. Usually our most successful groups that are dancing their victory dance over an unbroken egg, let alone an unbroken skull, they are starting in the 70 milliseconds. So even if God makes a miracle and Goliath's helmet falls off, even if he is thundering forward and this tiny little stone goes bink off the one weak spot in between his eyes and his helmet, because heavens knows the police team believe in the third eye. Wait, no, that's India, not Paleshat, and that's part of their religion, so don't make fun. Why would anyone have a hole in their armor right here? Even if it were, it would hardly be enough to crack an egg, let alone fracture his skull. Now, by this point, several of you are saying, wait a minute, we shouldn't be analyzing this by linear motion at all. We should be analyzing this rotational motion. If we're talking about falling down, the only person in the Torah who literally falls down is Korach and his sidekicks Datan and Aviram. If we're talking about falling, we're typically talking somebody going like this. That's rotation. make a quick drawing and find the torque. Look for a pivot point around Goliath and see if that solves the problem, that we're either going to have ridiculously bad violating conservation of momentum, or we're going to have the kind of impact time that might have nicked Goliath's left eyebrow, but certainly was not going to prevent him from making mashed potatoes out of David. Again, draw your stick figure, find your torque, press play to check your work. Shkoyach, we have just managed to make things worse. If Goliath is hit like this, around a pivot point here on the ground, he will most certainly be falling backwards. There's no way around it. If we want him to fall on his face, there's going to have to be like some stick over here for him to trip on. And I looked in the Mikra and I didn't say, and then Hashem put a really big rock where there had been a rock before, and Goliath tripped over it, which would explain his helmet falling off, and knocked himself out under his own weight. It doesn't say that. No sticks, no rocks, no pivot points down here. And even if there were a pivot point down here, what would the force be? Here's bink going off the helmet. That is going to push him onto his back. Again, if we want him to fall on his face, maybe it's the force of friction. No, wait, look at the torque. The force of friction provides a torque around the same axis. Even if the force of friction were a torque, since he's moving, which it isn't, he would still be falling on his back. Litza, let's go back to the 19th century. What does the Malbim have to say about this?
Malbim on Shmo Aleph Perek Zayin Pasuk Memtet Vayishlach ונלווה אליו השגחת השם, אם במה שקלה למטרה בפעם הראשון, אם במה שכיוון על מצחו, ואם היה נופל מסבת ההכאה, היה נופל אחריו, אבל האבן נצבה במצחו ונפל מחמת החולשה, לכן נפל על פניו.
Malbim has no explanation. He literally has no explanation. Hashgachat Hashem. What do they say in the insurance industry? It's an act of God. Malbim says, please, I am an industrial age commentator. Hayanafel acharav. He should be falling backward. Malbim is basically saying that what it really should look like should be this. Plus or minus a lot of video game ninja moves. There goes the stone, says the Malbim. There goes the helmet that might as well be made of chocolate. And Goliath has just been shot with a very, very large rock, so he staggers around for a bit and falls under his own weakness. Now this is where the geography turns out to be important. Notice that the guys over there can't see what's going on until now. Anybody can see that. Let's go back to the 1090s where this all began and see what Rashi has to say. Halitza?
Vayipol al panav is the Rashi on Shmo Aleph Perek Yud Zayin Pasuk Memtet. Vayipol al panav lo haya lo lapul ela lacharav shaharei al metzacho hocha ela kedei shelo yitzta'er David lalech ulechatzoch et rosho shenishtacher David achshav 12 amot v'zertayim shekomato 6 amot v'zeret nishtacher mela koma lacharav v'mela koma lefanav. So what does it mean they fell face forward? He should have fallen backwards since he had been struck on the forehead. But in order for David to not be troubled to walk the extra distance and cut off his head, ulechatzoch et rosho, David now saves 12 amot and 2 zerets. For his height was 6 amot and a zeret. David saves walking his entire height back and his entire height forward.
Now I want to make clear what Rashi knows here. Rashi knows Goliath is totally faking it. The man may be stunned. He may be temporarily rendered unconscious. Rashi says he's got to have the ability to stagger around and fall on his face practically on purpose. Sure, he's unconscious, but he's most definitely not dead. And Rashi's point, opposing armies on opposite sides of these cliffs are way too far away to actually see that Goliath's not dead. They see the guy fall over, they jump to conclusions. The biblical coroner is not the world's most accurate physician. They think he must be dead and they go nuts. Now, is he dead? Is he really dead? Well, let's see. וירץ דוד ויעמוד אל הפלישתי ויקח את חרבו וישלפה מצערה וימיתהו ויכרת בת ראשו. Well, if he's not dead in Pasuk Memtet, he's certainly dead by the end of Pasuk Nun Aleph when David has cut off his head. And Rashi says to save David the trouble of running 12 and a half feet this way, actually closer to 13, and another 12 and a half feet that way to cut off his head before the Plishti, who is only temporarily stunned, gets up on his big giant keister and beats the tar out of him. Hashem made this miracle that he kind of staggered around a bit and fell over. Rashi says in 1090-something, this is nuts. And he can't come up with any better of an explanation than the Malbim did, that Goliath must have hung around for a while, passed out, not noticed that his helmet had fallen off, and crashed over. And Rabbenu Bachrach says, we can do better than this. Check it out. To verse 6. Go back to Pasuk Vav and look at Goliath's armor. You know the armor that David is not wearing? V'chova nechoshet al rosho. And he was wearing a bronze hat on his head. Hello, he was wearing a bronze helmet on his head. B'shirion kashkashim hulavush. And armor of scales, all right, that we can make sense, scale armor he was wearing. And go down the list and go down the list. Umitzchat nechoshed al raglav. Let's translate this the way we have been translating this since before the days of King James, who got it wrong most famously. King James does not say, and lo therewith he was wearing bronze foreheads on his legs. METZACH is a plate. And in this case, just as it was perfectly obvious that Kova Nechoshet was not a copper hat, it was a bronze helmet, these are greaves. A METZACH is an armor-plated shin guard in between the knee and the ankle. And if you want to look at all the horrible David and Goliath cartoons out on YouTube that dress Goliath like a Roman soldier, you can also crack a Koren Tanakh Masechet Shabbat, looking at all the things that we may or may not wear out in the Reshut Harabim on Shabbat. You'll see all the Roman armor illustrated in color, and you'll have no difficulty picking out these greaves. They're like metal shin guards for ancient soccer players. And according to Rabbi Bachrach, when it says Vatitba b'mit, it doesn't mean the stone lodged in his forehead, drowned so deep that you would never see it again, which was laughable to begin with, and doubly so with an impact time of 88 milliseconds corresponding to the horizontal range of that sling. It vanished into the greave of his kneecap. Imagine if you're a 2.1 meter, 130 kilo giant running this way at top speed, and all of a sudden when you are halfway across the valley, a rock lodges right here in the joint of your metal kneecap and makes it impossible to bend your knee. And here you are, thundering forward with thousands of kilograms of momentum. What's going to happen next? Pause and draw. Have we solved our physics problem with a retranslation? Hot diggity. Look at that new pivot point. We don't have to worry about the force of friction. We don't have to worry about the ground. We just have to locate Goliath's center of mass and measure from the center of mass downward. That is going to be a very, very respectable fraction of his shesh amot v'zara. If his knee locks, and he has been pumping his knees up and down on the reasonably decent theory that they ought to be bending, and all of a sudden one of them does not bend, he is going to fall over under his own angular momentum. Everybody who said that it was ridiculous to think of him falling linearly like Korach straight down, it was an angular problem, you were perfectly right. But we needed to find the correct pivot point. And the correct pivot point is not with a stone to the forehead of a man who's already been said to be wearing a large bronze helmet. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that these Plishtim, who were so firmly entrenched into Aza, that the Romans, thousands of years later, renamed the land Palestina, because even the Romans knew who they were, had invented this marvelous 21st century high-tech invention called a chin strap that keeps your helmet on your head the whole time. Never mind the helmet. David wasn't shooting from the helmet. David has years in the field worth of experience showing how to bring enormous creatures down under their own weight without getting within reach of a claw or a fang or a javelin or anything else. David looks for Goliath's weak spot, and no, it's not in the hollow of his left breast, and no, it's not right between the eyes like a 6-year-old going into battle against a stuffed dummy. It is in the pivot point of his kneecap, whereby once he starts to rotate, even with a chin strap, who knows, his helmet may well fall off, at which point he will knock himself out under his own weight. Take a look at that angular momentum. Work it out yourself in number 6. You have his whole mass and his whole thunderous velocity from his center of mass down to his kneecap. If the distance between the kneecap and the foot is not relevant to 1 sig fig, you're going to simply have the whole term. Otherwise, you'll subtract off the length of his knee here. There will be a thunderous torque counterclockwise as he falls down on his face. Vayipolo, exactly the way the Mikra says. And Shaul says, who is that kid? Plotnich already knows who that kid is. That kid has been brought from Beit Lechem to play the harp for Shaul. And boy, oh boy, you should see the cartoons try to fit in the playing of the harp and the slaying of Goliath into one plot arc. Shaul's point is not who is this kid. Ben mi ze hanar. Whose son is he? I know who he is. I thought he was getting his degree in music, and I thought he was putting himself through school by watching sheep. Shaul wants to know, where did this kid study physics? Shaul says, my father was an Ish Gibor Chayil. I am the first king of Israel, and I never in my life thought of that trick. Shaul wants to know, where has that kid been taking his physics classes? Because wherever it is, I want to sign up. This concludes AP Physics C, Mechanics with Calculus, for both semesters of 2020. Somewhat aclimactically, from still here in lockdown, sheltering in place, Illinois, to all my AP students, all my graduating seniors, and all my juniors, my honorary AP students, I wish you the best of luck, health and safety, glory in the future, intelligence, a God-fearing life filled with truly understanding the universe, and how there's never any one piece of information or one discipline that's truly useless in trying to get a picture of the cosmos around us. May you be inspired, may you be engaged, may you go out into the world to tackle something much bigger than yourselves. Bracha v'hatzlacha.